if you have seen the movie Godfather, then you would remember that there is a very interesting sequence at the end of the movie. At one go, Al Pacino eliminates all his enemies spread across multiple locations. To my mind, something similar happened during this week when Mr. Modi carried out a cabinet overhaul and silenced in one sweep all dissenting, critical, and abusive voices against his government. The sheer audacity of the overhaul left large sections of the media, international critics, and the opposition shell-shocked and stunned at the scale, breadth, and the import of the reorganization. Hi, and welcome all to the CAA show. My name is Jaggi Bhasin. CAA is, of course, conversations and analysis. So, to come back to the cabinet reorganization, I call it reorganization and not reshuffle, because this was not a reshuffle of hands on the deck. This was an administrative and political surgery where non-performers were weeded out, discarded, and new blood was pumped in with sharp mission briefs of what was expected of them. A lot has already been said about the reshuffle, but for me, the underlying message was that the elite would have to coexist with the vernacular. Wharton and Stanford Business School alumni like Ashwani Vaishnav and Jyotiraditya Scindia would be rubbing shoulders with the likes of Mansukh Mandavia, who was trolled almost immediately for one of his past tweets. The English of the tweet, as we all know, was not perfect, but it was a classic case of Bharat meets India, you could say. But that was not all. Power women like Meenakshi Lekhi and Anupriya Patil made the cut, filling the vacant space besides Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman and Ms. Smriti Irani. Dalits and OBCs saw representation in the cabinet like never before. So what did it all mean? Unlike what the critics of the Modi government saw as caste salami slicing, I saw the reorganization as feeding the celebratory cake to just about every segment, grouping, special interest, and faction that exists in the country. Diverse people with different strengths and energies were brought in with only one brief: get on the job and deliver. At a stroke, the new cabinet looked like a sprightly youth with rosy cheeks, unlike the old, which had acquired a pallid tone. The overhaul silenced the critics, and there was hope in the air that better days lay ahead. A week is a long time in politics, they say. After the euphoria of the overhaul, within days, there were straws in the wind that if the BJP were not careful of the speed breakers that lay ahead, its new bus of hope could topple over in real quick time. To my mind, three major challenges lie ahead of the BJP. And an innocuous news item that the new Uttarakhand Chief Minister would be consulting the UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath on the Kawad Yatra sent the alarm bells ringing. Experts believe that the Kawad Yatra, if given the green signal, could become the single biggest super spreader of the coronavirus at a time when the country is still recovering from the second wave. Please understand what really the Kawad Yatra is all about. It is like a packed, overflowing bus going from city to city, state to state, with more people climbing on the bus at every stop. It is a moving human chain that covers just about every town, small and major city in North India. It is the perfect means, a moving vehicle of sorts, you could say, of transmission of the virus from end to end. Even in the best of times, the Kawad Yatra is always noisy, quite a bit unmanageable. In the pandemic, it could be the perfect, unstoppable COVID transmission vehicle. Why would Yogi give the green signal for this? Is it the same insecurity that dogged the previous Uttarakhand Chief Minister when he gave the go-ahead for the Kumbh Mela? We all know the results of that which surfaced in the second wave. Somebody must tell the UP Chief Minister that the Hindu consolidated vote is not going anywhere. It is ironic that such a terrible decision has been taken, especially when Yogi seems to be on top of things. He has vanquished the opposition in the recent Zilla Parishad elections. He has dispelled the gloom and doom of the pandemic in UP and silenced his critics. So then what is the need to take such a massive risk by holding the Kavad Yatra? The second big challenge for the BJP looming in the horizon is how to redouble the vaccination program. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia is reputed to be a go-getter. He did tremendous work in Gujarat battling the pandemic. Why on earth then is he persisting with the same team in the Health Ministry and Niti Aayog? This is the same team which almost derailed the vaccination program by their ill-advised, waffling, and almost authoritatively slow response in scaling up of new vaccines and procuring more from abroad. Even till this day, these bureaucrats are denying entry to Pfizer and Moderna on indemnity clause issues. Somebody should ask these bureaucrats how many people in India will sue and invoke the indemnity clause. Do we waste time on these so-called technicalities and deny more vaccines for India? Does Atmanirbhar mean depleting capacity in vaccine procurement to satisfy the egos of these self-serving bureaucrats? And finally, the two-child law for Uttar Pradesh is a great idea. And so also is a call for a uniform civil code across the country. But is the government capable of bringing around the table a wide cross-section of opinion on these matters and carrying everyone along with them? And even if they were to force ahead with the law, would they be able to implement it on the ground? Look at the fate of the CAA law and the Kisan bills and the subsequent agitation. The CAA agitation died down not because the government could control it, but that the pandemic stopped it in its track. And as for the Kisan protests, they are sputtering, but still going on. So, does the government have the stomach for another nationwide agitation? That is the question. Think before you leap, they say. So, on that note, it's goodbye for now. Keep watching this space and subscribe to us. It's, of course, completely free of cost.